Welcome, everybody, to Casting for Two, the podcast, as always, hosted by yours truly, Chris. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 225. I am going to try my hardest not to cough during this promo because I'm still getting over a sickness, and I'm trying so hard not to cough. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 225. I already said that. As always, if you'd like to keep up with me online when I'm not doing the show, when I'm not doing the podcast, you can do that on my Twitter and Instagram, both at Casting for Two. If you want to support the show, head on down to the links below and click up and sign up for either Comic Bento or Specibox. Use the promo code CASTING2, and that's the word casting and the number 2. And, of course, I got to talk about Sunday Brunch because it's another podcast that I do with the always beautiful and lovely Megan Johnson from TipsyWriter.com. I would recommend actually checking out her site as well. She's been posting a lot more, and I love her work. That's why I started a podcast with her, because I like her work and I like her. So go check that out at SundayBrunchPod.com, as well as all the other standard podcasting services. But anyway, I need to talk about my guest for today. My guest, he's a wonderful man, great chat. He is can currently be seen on a miniseries on National Geographic channel called The Long Road Home. And Mr. Kenny Liu is on the show, and it was just so great to chat with him. He's a wonderful guy, and everyone go watch The Long Road and then listen to this episode, or do both, or when it's commercial break, listen to the episode. I almost did it, but let's get into this episode, so sit back, relax, and Chris, cue the music, please.
Good, man. Today's been a busy day of interviews and meetings, and it's been absolutely lovely talking about both of my projects that are coming out. So yeah, I'm having a good time.
Nice. So what time did you start your day at? I'm curious.
Usually, well, last night was a little weird. For some reason, I woke up at like 5 a.m. And I'm currently thinking about writing a script that is like World War II, and so I've been doing some research on that. So I was like, man, I'm going to read some. So I ended up reading for a couple hours, and then went to sleep, and I woke up at about 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but generally I wake up pretty early, maybe like 7 or 8. I usually get a session at the gym, eat, and then whatever tends to happen during the day. A lot of times there's auditions and they're in the morning, so I need to jet off to that pretty early.
Okay.
It just depends on the day. It's crazy about actor's life is it's so up in the air always.
Right. No, I agree. Now I'm curious what, and you don't have to give anything away, but what prompted you to start, want to write a World War II script?
Well, it's actually something that inspired me a lot as a kid, actually. There's this really great video game that I grew up with, and I mean, like, it kind of almost defined my childhood, called Wing Commander.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that game?
Yeah, that's Wing. Is that the space game?
Yes, the space simulator.
Yeah, they made a movie about it with Freddie Prinze Jr.
yeah, and they didn't do a very good job of it.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, that game was something that influenced me so much as a kid, so much so that I wanted to become a pilot.
Oh
I
wow.
bought like so many flight simulators as a kid. On top of that, I was just a huge like World War II buff. By the time I was like in eighth grade, I had read so many books
Yeah.
about it. And anyway, it was just something that I was like, man, I used to really love reading about this and doing this, and I just feel like there's a really interesting story there because I still feel like it had that type of story hasn't really been captured yet
Hmm.
for the movies, like the very intimate relationship between pilots when either they're fighting against each other. It's like knights in the sky, you know,
Hmm.
forces your plane and you've got your armament, and it's a one-on-one duel to the death up there, you know,
Right.
and it's just a very interesting thing that I've never seen on screen yet. And so I was like, man, I would love to write a script. And on top of that, it gives me a great excuse to just read a bunch of books again.
There you go.
Yeah, so yeah, that's something that I haven't told anybody yet.
Uh
So
oh. Uh
take the
oh.
pride out of me, Chris.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, I
No,
mean, World War II is one of those. Uh, it's a very interesting war because if you look at
yes,
all the wars that happened after that, it was the only
right,
war that everybody was could get behind, where
yes,
soldiers came home and were just greeted with parades
yeah,
and all. And so like American history in general always has a special place in my heart, and I love American history. But yeah, World War II was just a different type of war that
oh, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely,
it's I've always said, if time travel was a thing and I knew I had months to live, I would try to go back to the days of Normandy to experience that, just because it must have been it was crazy, but still it's just so intense.
oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head right there, where it's like one of the few times in history where things were just so clear.
Hmm.
You know, like I mean, obviously there's shades of gray to everything, but that was probably the clearest instance of good versus evil.
Right, right.
You know, like it was just abundantly clear what who if you're fighting on this side, then you represent this. If you're fighting on that side, then you represent that. And on top of that, it's I mean, aviation wise, and this is this is me like getting into all these books that I'm reading.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating to see how air warfare became a thing back then.
Hmm.
Because something I'm finding out from my research is just that, man, prior to World War II, planes were just, I mean, some of the officers had to convince like the general staff that, hey, you know, planes are an important part of warfare.
Right.
And they were still convincing them of that well into like 1941, 1942. And they were just figuring out how to bomb things, and you know, like it was they had just figured out like, you know, the Norden sight, which is like something that you can use to help you bomb accurately from over 15,000 feet, and like what kind of planes are good for fighting in the skies. And you know, it's just such an interesting experimental time. So many people died for you know, flying an experimental plane. You know, like it's
Yeah.
just so fascinating.
And it's funny just how, in general, war evolves the way or the methods of fighting a war. Just because you look at back in the British era days where, um, you had drummers, you had a
Yeah.
flag holder, and each side would take turns
Shooting at each other.
shooting, and then the Americans, being American, just come out with guerrilla warfare, and it's just, oh.
Right, right,
It's
exactly. You
like,
stood there and took the bullet. Like what?
right.
What?
It's just fascinating how it all evolves. It
I
really is.
know,
So,
I know. Yeah,
uh,
and it's still changing now too.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Did you have to do you have a military background or anybody in your family?
No, actually,
No.
I had very little exposure to military anything here. Uh, short funny story. I was actually supposed to serve the Taiwanese military because I was
Okay.
born there.
Okay.
When I turned 18, they went to my grandma's house and went looking for me.
Uh
Um, but uh-oh,
oh.
uh-oh, right? But but no, I was already in college in the United States and stuff. So I got away from that, and I don't need to do that anymore. That's probably the closest encounter that I've had to the military prior to the long road home.
Yeah. Well, and then and which is a perfect segue. What kind of research did you do for your latest project coming up?
I first of all, it's based on a best-selling book by Martha Raddatz.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely ordered that, read that, did a lot of research into, you know, what military life is like. I had about a month to prepare before they wanted me on set, and so I called up a good friend of mine who's also an actor and an Iraq war vet. His name is Chris Barrow. He served for a good deal of time in the military. And I just took him out to dinner, and I was like, "Hey, Chris, I booked this thing. I would love to, hear it from you. What is military life like? What can I expect? Train me a little bit so that like I don't go into this thing cold turkey."
Right.
And I spent a few days with him. He was so generous with his time, because he was. I mean, that's a lot of military vets are just like that, where you ask them a little bit about that aspect of themselves, and they would gladly, give you the shirt off their back.
Right.
So that's what he did for me. And then on top of that, we were so fortunate to have a couple of Army Rangers train us for a couple of weeks before we started shooting the long road home.
Okay. And now, as far as character work, what is just basically, is that research just your way to get into a character, or do you ever read a script and you just know, I know this guy?
Oh! In terms of playing the man himself,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I got in touch with his family members. So spoiler alert, my guy dies.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no. So, but I mean, the book's been out for 13 years,
Yeah.
and it's a little bit hard for me to talk about this project without, spoiling it. But yeah, he passes, and it's a very traumatic event for a lot of these guys because Sergeant Eddie Chen was a little bit older than everybody else, and he was literally like everybody's big brother, like
Mm-hmm.
he looked out for everybody, because he's just got a few more years of wisdom under his belt by the time they were all serving out there together. And when he passes pretty early on in the ambush, his body is laid out in this courtyard where they're hiding out from the insurgents, and everybody's just like, oh my God, if a man like Eddie Chen can't make it, then what hope do I have? It's a very important part of the 8 hours that they go through during that ordeal. And
Right.
so the closest I could get to, seeing what he was like as a person was to talk to his brother. His parents are still in Guam, so they were a little bit harder to get in touch with. But his brother actually served in the military and is, I think, a year or two younger than he is.
Okay.
And he joined the military at the same time. And so yeah, I was in touch with his brother Virgil for a while, just to see like what kind of person was he. Tell me stories about what he was like growing up. What did he do? Like if he was presented with this, what would he do? And something that's really fascinating is that here's a funny little story. I was hanging out at the Starbucks a lot because sometimes we would have like a week break because it's a huge ensemble cast.
Yeah.
And there was this girl that I became friends with who was one of the baristas at Starbucks, and she's way young, so I was like, I was not hitting on her or anything.
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
17, and like she really liked my presence, I guess, because she was like, "Oh, you're an actor, huh?" And I was like, "Oh, how do you know?" And she goes, "Because you just got that aura about you." And I was like, um, anyway, she follows me on Instagram, and one random morning, her mom reaches out to me, I think through Instagram,
Yeah.
finding me through her daughter's Instagram, and messaged me saying, "Hey, so it's my daughter's birthday today. Would you mind coming to like, make a surprise appearance at her birthday and like present her with the cake?" And it would just really make her day. that day I wasn't doing anything, so I was like, you know what? Why not? Like, why not make somebody's day a little bit better? So
Yeah.
she was like, really? And I was like, yeah, I'm coming. Just tell me the address. And I show up, and then like I sneak in through the back, and like I present this cake to her, and she like screams, and she's like, oh my god, this is crazy. And I was like, I was so flattered because I was like, man, I can't believe I can evoke that kind of reaction from somebody.
Yeah.
Anyway, her whole dinner had like maybe 20 of her family members, and I find out that this girl is from Guam.
Oh.
Yes, and then like we started talking about why I was in Texas, and I'm saying, oh yeah, I'm shooting this military show about this thing that happened in Iraq 2004, and then some of them asked like, oh, do you know a guy named Eddie Chen?
Oh.
Ooh. And then
Oh. Yeah.
yeah, and then I was like, yeah, I'm playing him. And then they were like, oh my god, and like I don't know how many of your viewers know this, but Guam is like such a small island
Yeah.
that almost everybody knows each other. And so then like a couple of them were like, oh my god, I grew up with him,
Oh,
and like I
wow.
served in the police force with him because Eddie did that before he joined the military. And oh my god, yeah, he was in my high school. Like I was a year under him, and yeah, and it was just so crazy because I got to hear so many things about this man who passed 13 years earlier,
Hmm.
um, just from just from these random sources that I would never have dreamed that I would find on purpose, you know.
Right.
And it was just so surreal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I I was gonna say, if it must be weird to play somebody that is, was a real person,
yeah,
but then
yeah,
just to have that situation where, oh, like here's his schoolmates, and just to add a
yeah,
chance, that's crazy.
yeah. And yeah, then there's another layer to it too. When I first arrived at the on set, I really had no idea what to expect. Like, my agents didn't know much, my manager didn't know much because they were keeping everything under wraps.
Hmm.
All I knew is I was getting some free boot camp, and I was really excited about it. And and I show up, and the first week that I'm there, there's this big reunion with all of the vets who survived. Like, these guys flew in from all over the world to give us their blessing about this story
Hmm.
because National Geographic was like, we're not going to glorify any of this. We're just going to tell the story honestly, everything that happened, like all the good, all the bad, like just the terrible decisions that go into, having to participate in war.
Right.
And these guys were just so gung ho about that because I've come to realize they felt so misrepresented by our TV and our media, like
Right.
glorifying things that they've done, and they're just like, we don't fucking want that. We just want honesty, and we want people to really know what it's like, and that's what we want. And so all these guys are so excited to come out and give us their blessing to tell the story. Anyway, like the first time that they see me, I'm the only Asian guy in this platoon,
Right.
and so immediately, like as I show up at the reunion, they immediately know who I am,
Right.
and they see me and they look at me for 2 seconds, and oh my god, Chris, several times, like they would just see me, we'd make eye contact, and then they would have to turn away, and there's just tears streaming down their
Oh,
face.
jeez.
Yeah, they're just like, give me a second, and then
Yeah.
back to me and say, you're playing Eddie, huh? And I'm like, yeah. And they're just like, man, I wish that I could have done more for him,
Yeah.
and God, it was so much for me to step into,
Hmm.
um, but at the same time, just so meaningful. Like I man, at that reunion, like I was only able to last for like half an hour before I'd like step away for a bit,
Yeah.
and because it was overwhelming, yeah. So it's that level of it was also something that really made me realize how important storytelling is, like telling a story that means this much to so many people, because so many of them are like, I still haven't told my parents, I still haven't told my wife, my kids what happened out there, and now they can finally know why I am the way that I am.
Right.
And yeah, and it's just I'm just so lucky to be like, even having a small part in telling that story and being able to be a part of this catharsis. Yeah, so oh my gosh, there's more stories too. That was just
Yeah.
my week.
Oh, jeez. Well, let me tell you this. When did you know acting was something that you wanted to pursue?
um, yeah, that's a very good question because prior to acting, I've got a degree in mechanical engineering from UC Berkeley,
Mm.
and I became a web developer right out of school. I was working in Silicon Valley for a while, doing startups and all, and um, it was something that I actually started doing as a kid. In middle school, by the time I graduated middle school, I had done about 10 plays, like some of them like local community, and I was always like the lead of them. So I was this kid in school that was like known as a kid actor.
Uh huh.
Yeah, and then in high school, like I don't know what it was, whether it was, I don't know, being Asian or like in the sense of like like there's no chance that an Asian guy would ever make it as an actor, or whether it was just the cultural thing of I should be more focused on the math and the sciences or something more serious. I completely stopped. Like I realized that I loved acting, and I was like, you know what, that means I should stop it because now it's time to get serious. Now it's time to become an adult.
Right.
Yeah, and so I completely stopped until after I graduated from engineering school, and I was like, man, I used to love doing this. Um, let's audition for something on Craigslist.
A legit thing from Craigslist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was like the worst idea. It is still the worst idea you can do.
Right.
Anyway, I got really lucky. I got really lucky, and I booked a feature film that was paid pretty much
Nice.
right out the gate. And
Nice.
yeah, I mean the project still isn't out now, so that
Uh,
was like 10 years ago, so it's probably not that great. But there was a guy on set who used to be an actor, an Asian American guy, and he's working for he was working for like a tech company as an executive, and he was like, I used to really love acting, and he was serving as acting coach on that set, and he was just like, man, I really like working with you. Why don't you just come to my house once a week and I'll help you on acting. I want you to be my first client. I want to start managing some actors.
mm,
Yeah, and I went to his place like once a week for 2 years. His name is Tom Lin, and he just really helped me out. Like as soon as you have somebody believe in you, that kind of changed a lot of things. Because when I did that thing, when I auditioned for something on Craigslist, it wasn't even a hobby at that point. It was more like, oh yeah, I used to love doing this. Let's see what it's like.
yeah.
And because of him, it became something that was like a hobby, and then he helped me land the best agency in the Bay Area, Stars Management. Um, and from there, it became a side job. And then some really great stuff happened with my engineering career where we got funded by Google Ventures, like the startup that we did, and
Hmm.
we worked out of there for a couple of years, and then we sold our startup. Our startup got acquired by another company, and I was financially secure for at least a few years, where I was like, man, I'm like at the time I was like 27 or 28, and
Yeah.
I didn't I didn't need to do like the engineering thing anymore. I was pursuing acting on the side at the same time, and I was single and I didn't have kids and all this stuff, and I was like, man, I'd really regret it if I didn't pursue acting for real.
Right.
And so I was like, well, here we go. And so then I moved to LA January 1st, 2014. It's like three and a
Okay.
half, almost 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's basically how I came about to becoming an actor. Was really having somebody believe in me, and also realizing that, man, this as much as I love engineering, there's something even deeper than love about acting for me.
And so, besides the Craigslist thing, do you have any bad auditioning stories?
Oh my God. There are so many. It's not even funny. Are you familiar with Dragon Ball Z?
I am. I very much, yes. Yes.
Did you know I'm doing a live action adaptation of Dragon Ball Z?
That might have came up
Yes.
in my research.
Yeah. So in the first episode that this group did, it's they're doing a live action adaptation of the history of Trunks timeline. And
Okay.
so it's very limited characters. It's Gohan, Trunks, and Bulma, and everybody else is pretty much dead. And they're doing this live action adaptation, and their first episode got quite a bit of traction. It was like 28 million views and counting.
Oh.
It's still increasing now.
Yeah.
And, so the next episode that I'm the lead in is going to come out November 14th. So that's like the week after Long Road Home. So that I've got a couple of really big releases coming out.
Yeah.
Anyway, the audition for Dragon Ball Z was very funny because for your viewers that aren't familiar with what it means to go Super Saiyan, it involves a lot of screaming,
Right.
a lot of nerding out, and
Yeah.
a lot of acting like you're really, really cool.
Yeah. and a really good hairdresser.
And a really, really good hairdresser. And one of my favorite auditioning stories is I had just pretty much arrived in LA, and these guys were casting for the lead of Dragon Ball Z, and they put an audition notice out on a casting website called Actors Access, which is where a lot of newish actors go to if they want to audition for roles that don't need to go through agents. And I found this, and I was like, I'm going to submit for this because it'd be amazing.
Yeah.
And I submitted myself for sure enough, got an audition, and there were two scenes. The first scene was like a typical dialogue scene, just to see if you can even act and carry a scene, which is reasonable.
Yeah.
The second scene is there's no dialogue. It's just Gohan lying on the ground dying with one arm.
Yeah.
And he gets up and he turns Super Saiyan and he throws a Kamehameha wave.
Yeah.
And if anybody that's familiar with Dragon Ball Z knows how intense that scene would have to be, and and one of my favorite stories is when I went for that audition. The first scene was easy; it was just dialogue. And the second scene, we did this audition in a room with 6 people in it, and the room was about the size of a closet.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, "Okay, can you do the second scene now?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I got down on the ground and did such a realistic portrayal of going Super Saiyan, but live action.
Yeah.
That right afterwards, they were like, "Wow, you've really practiced that, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've been doing it for my whole life." Oh, it was insane because it was such a small room, and I can yell like really loud, and it was something very special.
Nice. You probably scared off everyone else. It was like, nah, we're just gonna leave. You only got the role because nobody else auditioned after that.
Everybody got blown away by my my power level.
Exactly. I don't want to do that meme thing, but it was over a certain amount.
Yeah, I think it was 8,999.
Exactly. That's what it was. Yes, it was over that. That's awesome. It's Dragon Ball Z is one of those shows that as I remember watching that every day after school up until like the Cell Saga, after the Cell Saga, I should say.
Oh yeah, same. I watched it. I watched it even before Toonami was a thing, man.
Right.
It was like on PBS or something, and it was once every 2 weeks, and there were reruns like every 4 weeks, so we never really got anywhere. But
yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember it being on like on a Sunday at 4 p.m. just on a random station.
Yeah.
So nobody's watching cartoons at that time.
Yeah. And what's really crazy about it is that like up until I got cast in this thing and we started attending all these Comic Cons,
Hmm.
I really thought that it was just an Asian thing.
Okay.
I thought
Yeah.
only Asian kids watch this because I mean I went to engineering school, which is like a bunch of Asian kids and foreigners, and
Yeah.
we geeked out on anime a lot in school, but yeah, like I always kept it a secret, you know, like I always like hid in my room to watch my like little cartoon show that I was such a huge fan of. But then when we started attending these Comic Cons was when I realized how incredibly diverse the Dragon Ball Z community is.
Yeah.
It's transcended even anime itself.
Right.
Our Donnie and Rita are the two. It's a husband and wife team that created this live action adaptation. Donnie himself is Black American, and Rita is Latino American.
Hmm.
And yeah, Donnie's just like, yeah, we're walking through the Comic Cons and we're handing out flyers to go to our panels. And he just goes to every single black person. He's like, yeah, I know you're a fan. I know you're a fan. You should check this out. And then I'm going to all the Asian kids. I'm like, I know you're a fan. I know you're a fan. Check this out. And then online, our biggest following comes from South America.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and it's just so bizarre to me that it's such an international, it's something universal about the show that it's just kind of bizarre how it's kind of united so many people from so many different backgrounds, like completely, like just all around the world. And that's something that's really special to see is to see so many people being connected by something as almost ridiculous as the story is if you like really think about it.
It's definitely so. The main I go to a convention every year that
Yeah.
is it's half just like internet videos and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but they've also ventured into anime as well.
Yep.
So you have half of the people there for these dumb internet videos, and then the other half for anime, and it's just so
Yeah.
funny to see
Yeah.
those two types clash. And I'm not saying like clash, but
Right, right, right.
just kind of meld together. It's just
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm not an anime person. I'm sorry if that offends
Oh,
anyone,
good.
but
Yeah.
it's just so funny to see how well that's launched as well as cosplaying. That I mean that
Mhm.
itself is serious business right there.
Yeah, for real. Which con do you attend?
I go to RTX.
RTX. Okay, cool. We haven't
Yeah,
been to
that
one yet.
that's in Austin,
Mhm.
Austin, Texas. It's yeah, have you ever heard of a show called Ruby?
No.
It's yeah, it's it's an American made anime, but it's gotten quite a huge following.
Wow. Where what is it streaming on? Or what is it?
I believe you can watch them on YouTube.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah,
Cool.
but so yeah, so it's interesting to see just that whole dynamic and just
Yeah.
I know a lot of my friends love anime and just talk all and I just stare. I don't know what you're talking about,
Yeah, yeah.
but
It's hard to I'm a bit more of an old school anime fan. Like a lot of the newer stuff is a little too much for me, to be
right.
honest. But then some of the classic ones that like really tell some really great stories, like Cowboy Bebop or
Mm,
I'm completely blown away by still. Like some of the best, some of my favorite films are anime properties.
nice, nice. And so for the people at home who would like to keep in contact with you, watch all the projects that you're in, where can they do that?
Well, you can always keep in touch with me on Twitter or Instagram. Both of them, the handles are the Kenny Lou,
Hmm.
which is spelled Leu. I'm generally pretty good with keeping up with my social media and posting regularly. So yeah, just reach out to me out there. I'm always interested in meeting new people and chatting with them. So yeah, you can find me on there.
And we can also book you for birthday parties there as well, right?
Yes. Although I'm thinking
Uh-oh.
to make that like a special service. I don't know.
There we
Maybe
go.
maybe $500 or something.
There we go. Yeah, yeah. You that needs its own page. You don't want to mix your personal life with your
Yeah,
business life.
invite me to your birthday parties.
Let me eat your food.
Yeah, let me eat your food.
There has to be a service where you can hire people just to fill the space, fill the space at a dead party. That
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
it's not a thing, look, okay, Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
And I have dumb ideas. I think we should work together on this. We'll
Yes.
we'll
Yes,
sell it to Google or whoever.
right. There's. I could imagine a couple of ways that we can make do with existing services. There's something called Fiverr, which is like you pay $5 to somebody, you can have them do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And then there's also central casting in LA. Just hire a bunch of extras for the day.
There we go. We got it. Fiverr was the one site that I went to when I was fresh out of film school and just looking for work. Fiverr helped me a lot on that.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, dead
That's
serious.
Is
Because
it
I
like $5 though? They give you $5.
so when I did it, this was around, I want to say 2009.
Yeah.
It was just $5. Now they do offer more services, so you can still pay the $5 for. But if you need whatever it is, like for me, I would edit videos. If you needed it in a day, I could charge $20 more.
Oh, I see.
So stuff like that.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So, but you know what? We'll get the contract written up, and we'll get our business off the ground.
Yeah, I'll call my guys. You talk to your guys, and we'll work out something.
All our guys are the same guys. They have the numbers. Yeah, it's it's all good. But Kenny, thank you so much for chatting with me. Anytime you want to come back, just let me know. All right, man.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. Such a pleasure talking to you.
You too, and you have a wonderful rest of your day. All right.
Thank you. You as well, man.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care.